Salutations from space friends. This is Gemini Brett with some sacred astronomy play for you today. Cycles, synods. What does synod mean? Meeting, right? Like the meeting of the luminaries from Earth's point of view. The Syzygy, which means the alignment of three things called new moon. Earth, moon, sun, right? Coming our way once a month. Syzygy. That's also a term that's applied to full moons, right? Moon, earth, sun. Still in alignment of the three parts of the philosophy of the whole world, to quote from the last rubric of Hermes' Emerald Tablet. The synod, which means meeting, the synodic cycle of moon and sun is actually a kind of complex thing because, as they say, the world does not stop spinning for you, honey, right? And so in this model that we use where the moon is orbiting Earth and Earth is orbiting the sun, you know, there's many different types of months or many different types of moons. So we're going to explore a couple of them today and then get into learning to see time in a chart, which of course is a static moment, right? But time that led to that moment, where that moment is leading, we could also do. And we'll focus specifically today on SoliLunar time, sun moon time, and the magic of 12 degrees and 12 minutes. Sounds exciting, right? Okay. Again, you know, moon sun, kind of a complex thing because they're both dynamic. I mean, from Earth's point of view, of course, the moon's always moving and the sun's also always moving through the zodiac. Why? Because Earth is, right? Our experience of the sun's motion is our experience actually of the Earth's orbital motion, right? Earth orbits sun once in a year. So here on Earth, we see sun circling us. And so sun aligns, for example, to the royal star Regulus once a year. Sun and moon luminaries to the ancients were also known as planetes, right? Wanderers, because like Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, the rest of the visible crew, the sun and the moon are seen to wander against the backdrop of the fixed stars. Like Regulus, the heart of the lion, the royal star that rules them all, right? Fixed stars. Why do we call them fixed? Because they don't move through the heavens. They don't move through the zodiac. Well, yes, they do. They just do very slowly. They do so because of Earth's tertiary motion, right? So the daily motion, primary motion, spinning, sun through the houses, okay? The secondary motion, the orbital motion, right? Sun through the signs. And there's this tertiary motion of the Earth, this axial precession, which is a very slow happening. It takes about 26,000 years, about 72 years just for 1 degree of this great circle to be traced. And as it is traced, the equinoxes precess. We could also say that the stars process through the directions, through the tropical zodiac, which is a directional zodiac. So for example, Regulus here on screen processed into the tropical sign of Virgo in 2012. This is actually one of Dane Rudur's criteria for the transition into the new age. And since Regulus is now held by that first degree of Virgo, this means that Sun conjoins Regulus every year around August 22nd or August 23rd, first degree of tropical Virgo. So you can see here, this is the brilliant astronomy software Stellarium. You can see here August 22nd, 2020. I've just got it cast for 12 p.m. Just not necessarily the exact alignment, but you can see it there, right? Wrong. So, I mean, this is one of the tricky things about the sun star alignments, right? And the birth of, in a sense, seasonal zodiacal awareness, which is really about the decans, a term that modern astrology reserves to describe 10-degree slices of sky, of ecliptic circle, right? Or a third of a sign. No, I mean, the decans in the Egyptian wisdom tradition were about the stars that you see rising throughout the year. The heliacal rise of a star describes that moment when the sun has moved far enough from it. Let me rewind. I mean, let's just imagine the sun was over here. That means that Regulus would rise before the sun does. Because when the sun rises, the sky goes away, right? That's one of the reasons why 12th house is hidden things. Astrology is the poetic breath of nature. So the decan stars were marker stars that you wouldn't be seeing the time that the sun aligns to the star. You can't see the sun aligned to anything. I mean, there's ancient ways of working with the length of your shadow or horizon calendars to know where the sun is in the zodiac for planting, harvesting, travel, all that. But working with the sun's alignment to the stars is not about the exact alignment. It's about the time once the star is passed by the sun and the sun has separated from that star by far enough that that star now rises before the sunlight, early enough that it can be seen, and then the sun rises and takes it from our eyes. And the next day it spends a little bit more time above the horizon before sunrise, and the next day a little more. It's like that. And then the next decan star shows up to tell us, we've moved into the next section of the year. It's like that, right? So certainly sun star has been, at the very root of zodiacal awareness. But it's easy to look at charts and think it's something like this and disconnected from nature, where we know it's more like that, right? It's a different story with the moon, which is why the lunar mansions or nakshatras shown here in the Vedic tradition, right, probably predate the idea of some solar zodiac, right? Because we can watch the moon travel day by day through the lunar mansions, which describe about 13 degrees of ecliptic space. Why? Because the moon moves on average about 13 degrees per day, right? We're going to get deeper into that, into the magic of the 13 and the 12. So here's an example. This is this tropical zodiac showing moon's recent ingress Cancer on April 27th, and the one before that on March 31st. Just so happens that in our day and age, and this is the subject of my talk coming up at NORWAC, Earth's North Pole, which always forever leans towards the tropical cusp of Gemini and Cancer, right? The tropical zodiac is directional. It is married to Earth's rotational axis, which defines the directions. That's the gig, okay? So that's not new, that the northern pole is leaning towards the north point, 0 degrees tropical Cancer. What is new and only aligns in this way every 26,000 years about is that precession has brought us in such a way so that that north point is pointing towards Orion's club in the sky. This is the sun on the hand of the high man here, actually the moon on the hand of the high man, and I'll reserve that for another time. Check out my talk next week at NORWAC. NORWAC's going to be it's always an amazing conference. This year it's going to be an amazing online conference. Anyway, here on March 31st, we have moon ingressing Cancer, reflecting Aries light, right? So that's about a square. It's actually about more like 80 degrees, which is a binovile, twice 40 degrees. And a month later, moon ingressing Cancer. Well, what's different? Well, the sun has traveled about a month, and it's not a month, by the way. About 27 and a third days. We'll see that again in slides to come. So no longer a square or a binovile of 89 degrees. You're more, what, 79? This one is sextile, right? Cancer and Taurus. Signs of the same polarities. That's sextile or opposition. And here definitely sextile 60 degrees, although more like what, 52 degrees. It's more like a septile 1/7 of the circle. Regardless, importantly, this is the time, it's about 27.3 days of moon's orbit of the Earth, if we use that model, or circling the zodiac, or moon's alignment again to a star. We could call that meeting a synod, but this actually speaks to the moon's sidereal cycle. Sidereal means of the star. So there are many types of months, okay? Many months. And so let's look at the sidereal month. It's about 27 and a third days. 27.32166. Okay. The sidereal month is not about moon phase, which is reflected by moon's alignment with sun. Rather, the sidereal month is about moon's alignment with distant stars, or the fixed stars, sidereal meaning of the stars. Lunar mansion, nakshatra, right? Constellation. Or equally about moon's alignment with Earth's directions, which is the nature of the tropical zodiac. So in these images where we see three things, one, we see a heliocentric model, thanks to the brilliant astronomy software Solar System Scope. Here we see a geocentric model, an Earth-centered astrology chart, thanks to Astro Gold software. Here we see the phase of the moon, okay, new. Right? How do we know? Because moon is conjoined sun. Moon is between Earth and sun. Where is Earth on a geocentric chart wheel? Geocentric means Earth-centered. So this is Earth, moon, sun. A little easier to see there. Okay. I've oriented this just as the so-called natural zodiac with 0 Aries on tropical, 0 Aries on the left is oriented, which is that north is down. Okay, so here the southern axis of Earth is leaning towards the top of your screen, and every moment forever, that is the degree of the zodiac called 0 Capricorn. Okay, so the sun is due south of the center of Earth every year at December solstice, and in the year of 2014, it just so happened that moon joined that south party. So we have this syzygy, the alignment of the three things, Earth, moon, sun, new moon, December 21st, 2014 at the south point, right? So when's the next new moon? Well, that's a different month. That's the synodic month, synod meaning meeting of moon and sun. So this is a synod, right? A new moon. But when we look at the sidereal month, which is simply in the model of moon orbiting the Earth, it's the moon orbiting the Earth. It's the moon about the zodiac. So when is the lunar return of the moon to the same degree? And here you go. 0 degrees 6 arc minutes, Capricorn. So the moon is south from the center of Earth, right? The Capricorn point, tropical Capricorn, is where in every moment's time forever, the southern spine of Gaia, Earth's world tree in the southern lean, is leaning towards 0 Capricorn. The tropical zodiac is a directional phenomena. All right. And so here the moon is back to that south point about 27.32 days later. And this was January 18th, 2015. All right. And you can see it's not a new moon, right? The moon's going to have to travel further to make a new moon again, to perfect that syzygy, to align between Earth and Sun again, right? Right. Why? Because the Earth has also moved. Or from Earth's point of view, the Sun has also moved, right? Okay, so that brings us to the synodic month, the month of meeting. So here we see sidereal. I've symbolized it by moon's alignments with the cross of matter, the directions, Earth's pole. That's the tropical zodiac. We could also say, of course, sidereal of the stars, because Earth's pole is aligned to certain stars, basically for your whole life in the same way. Synodic would be moon with sun, right? So this is about moon phase. The synodic month is about 29.53 days. 29.53059. But who's counting? The synodic month is about 2.2 days longer than the sidereal month, right? Because in the 27.3 days required for moon to circle the zodiac, the sun has also moved, right? About 27.3 degrees. Why? We're going to look at that. So the moon has to travel some to catch up. And not just those 27.3 degrees, because the sun's also moving while the moon's going to catch up. Anyway, it works out that the average time between Earth, Moon, Sun, the synod or syzygy, right, called new moon, the average time between consecutive new moons is about 29.5 days. So the SoliLunar calendars, like the Hebrew calendar, which comes from the Babylonian calendar, the Chinese calendar, they keep this pace by alternating between months of 30 days and months of 29 days, right? Well, that doesn't keep this, and you end up with 12 of these months that average 29.5 days being 354 days long. That's the silver year. It's not quite the golden year of 365 days and change. So you have some issues, right? You have to throw in leap months here and there. And that's a tale for another time. Right now, I want to talk about this thing. A great average to know is 12 degrees and 12 minutes per day. Let me show you where that comes from. And this is a slide we are going to complete together, friends. Okay. So sun's daily travel equals 360 degrees, the circle, divided by the amount of time it takes for the sun to get around the circle, which is what? The time it takes for the Earth to orbit the sun. This is called a tropical year. And it's about 365.242199 days long. Okay, so I'm going to use this number, dividing the circle by that number. I get this amount of degrees per day. Okay, which is 59 degrees and 8 arc minutes per day. All right, sun's daily travel. Just do that. And we say about 1 degree per day, which is safe. Okay. What about the moon's daily travel? Well, that 360 degrees zodiacal circle divided by the days of a sidereal month, right? Which we saw earlier, 27.32. 27.32166 and change. Anyway, so this math turns out to be 13.18, which is actually in and of itself an amazing thing, because if you've studied, well, your eclipse cycles, the nodes transit the zodiac in 18.6 years. There is an 18-year eclipse cycle called the Saros cycle of 18.03 years, which is 18 years, 11 days, and 8 hours. We could go on and on and on. Anyway, 18 is a moon thing. So is 13. Why? Because of this. Because moon circles the zodiac in about 13 degrees per day. There's another thing I could show you in that regard, although it's not in these slides. Let me just say that there for sidereal months, right, for this kind of month, there's 13.368 of these a year. Moon circles the zodiac about 13 1/3 times a year. And for synodic months, new moon to new moon, there's 12.368 synodic months in a year. So there are about 12 1/3 new moons per year. There's either 12 or about every third year, there'll be 13. Really depends on when you decide a year begins. Is it January 1st? Is it a solstice? Is it an equinox? anyway. So 13 is a very powerful moon number, and this is the reason why the nakshatras are about 13 degrees of sky. Okay. Now, the SoliLunar time I want to get into here is this, okay? The difference between moon's daily travel and that of the sun. 33 feels like a good number for that one. Is what? It's just this minus this. So let's do one of these things. Oh wait, that's already there. 13 degrees and 11 minutes. Actually, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go 13.18 minus it's kind of unfair with the decimal places. Let's do that a little bit more perfectly. So 360 over 27.32166 is 13.1764. Okay, and that number minus 0.9856 okay, is 12.19 degrees. Okay, so now this is also an amazing thing. I'm not sure why, hold on a second. Stuck in superscript. Equals 12.19 degrees. I'm gonna make this 18 again. Why I'm trying to make a point. And then let's do this. This is actually about 12 degrees and 12 minutes. So I'll get back to that. But why do I want that? Because again, there's an eclipse cycle of 18 years. There's also an eclipse cycle of 19 years, the Metonic Cycle, okay, which is the time it takes for the Earth Sun happening. That's the year. And the Earth Moon Sun, the synodic month, new moon to new moon, a lunation. It takes 19 Earth years for those cycles to synchronize. Just so happens that 19 Earth years is almost exactly 235 lunations. A fascinating number because this tilt angle is about 23.5 degrees, 235. Also belong to the golden number set known as the Fibonacci sequence. I could go on and on. But this to me is an amazing thing. Look at this. 1212. Why can I say 1212? Well, this is about 12.2, right? 0.2 is 1/5. 1/5 of 60 minutes is 12 minutes. I mean, we could get more specific. I could say 0.19 degrees times 60 minutes in a degree is 11.4. And then I could say that 0.4 is 24 seconds. So this is more like 12, 11, 24. Right? But I like this idea of 1212. And still, I use 12 when I look at this in charts, and that's what we're going to do now. Let me just make this happening a little more happening. So I can save it for teaching a class another time. Huh. All right. Let's look at some charts together. Let me make sure the screen is shared right. So I bring up some charts. I am, for some reason, on September 8th, 2019, with this amazing mystic rectangle between the nodes with the moon there, many beings in Virgo, Neptune. I don't know why. And here we see Jupiter on the square. Okay, let's go to a chart. Okay, let's just pick any. How about David Bowie? Yes. Okay. And for the sake of this thing, where we're going to look at SoliLunar time, I'm going to strip this chart down so we just see the sun and the moon. I might leave some other things on, like the lunar nodes and true black moon Lilith, which is also a lunar thing. Let me just put this away. All right. But, you know, we want to be able to do this with the full chart. You know, how far does Saturn move in a given amount of time? How far does Mercury move? Mercury this far from the sun is a morning star. What's Mercury's speed at that time versus the time when he's with the sun or stationing or whatever, right? Wheels within wheels, my friends. Let's do sun, moon, nodes. We'll take this thing down. And also Lilith, because Lilith's going to describe how fast the moon is moving if we want to get a little more particular. You know, actually, for now, let's not. Let's just look at the sun and the moon. That's a nicer way to play. David Bowie, 9 a.m. Let's see. We get a B rating for the rodent system, so not hard to say exactly with this time. Regardless, the moon was somewhere around here. Maybe the moon was in Cancer. Right? The moon moves about 1 degree every 2 hours. So some 8 hours before this time, still January 8th, 1947, moon was in Cancer. Okay, but is Bowie a Leo moon or a Cancer moon? Rectified. And Aquarius rising does feel pretty good for David Bowie, but we need to be careful. We want to do a lot more than that. I mean, Bowie does have an Aquarius rising kind of look. And then we saw Moon Saturn too. Anyway, let's do this. Okay. So in the Hellenistic work, consideration of the prenatal syzygy is a very important thing, right? So what is a syzygy? It is the alignment of the three things. When we say that astronomically, we typically are speaking about the syzygy, or the alignment of the three things called Earth, Moon, and Sun. That's a new moon, or Moon, Earth, and Sun. That's a full moon. When we say syzygy astrologically, we are almost always implying new moon or full moon. Okay, so the prenatal syzygy is the prenatal new moon if a native is born during the waxing half of the lunation. But Bowie was born after full moon, right? That happened when moon was opposite sun. So let's play this game of when was that and in which degree was the full moon? You know, just looking at this chart, where was Bowie's prenatal syzygy? Not so tricky here because he's born so close to the full moon. Many would call this the full moon phase still. Okay. And then we'll also go back and we'll look at, when was Bowie's prenatal new moon? Cool. All right. Using this 12 degrees and 12 minutes key. Let's just use 12. It's going to make the math a lot easier. Well, we'll see. Because maybe we'll use a calculator. If we do, we'll be more precise. I'd really encourage you to be able to do this in your mind. And I want to show you here that, while of course numbers can be intimidating more for some than others, depending on the quality of your education system's shame programming, and disconnection from teaching the nature of number. What if we learned oneness before we learned two, and the idea of two-ness before we learn 3, we would all have a much deeper connection to number. What if we swept circles with a compass when we spoke about the 1? Anyway, I'm biased and bitter. And I've spent a lot of time, you know, I looking back, I realized the first moment I really experienced as a healer was as a math tutor. And I was tutoring for adults mostly at a community college. And mostly adults who were trying to pass basic maths and were really plagued by some feeling that they just couldn't do math at all. And had many breakthroughs with people just finding the way that they speak math, you know. Yeah, never forget that. 2001. Interesting, because many waves of that time have come around again. So fun to be thinking about that time in my own life. All right, so how far is moon from sun? What is this phase angle, right? But when we speak synods, like moon, sun, we should speak it that way, not sun, moon. Speak the name of the faster moving planet first, because it is moon that is separating from the syzygy of full moon that happened a couple of days before David Bowie did. It is moon who will apply to trine the sun in the closing trine of her cycle. And I know it's the closing trine because moon moves faster than sun. And when I speak moon, trine, sun, I can see that it's the moon that will go to square the sun and later sextile the sun and later conjoin the sun to begin the next moon, sun, synodic cycle. I really, really encourage you to learn to speak the name of the faster moving planet first when you are speaking about natal aspects, which describe a moment of a cycle. Tuning into the cycle is much easier to do if you honor the appropriate grammar, which is to speak the name of the faster moving planet first. It changes everything because it helps us start to see time. And I owe a debt of gratitude to Kent Bai for teaching that to me when I was very early in my astrological exploration. So instead of looking at this phase angle as this, well, quincunx 150 degrees would be, you know, moon at 17 Virgo, right? So it's 150 degrees plus 14 or 13. It's about 163, 164 degrees from moon to sun here. You know, we could play vibrational astrology games and see that that's like, and there's that 0.19 again. It's like the 2.2 harmonic. What if I multiplied that whole thing times 5? It's like the 11th harmonic, somewhere in there. So for the sake of science, let's cast an 11th harmonic chart for David Bowie. And we will see, something went wrong. Well, the software went wrong. That's a 7th harmonic chart. There we go. Moon and sun conjoined. Mathemagics, right? So harmonic astrology, vibrational astrology, as David Cochrane refers to it, an amazing thing. 11's also an amazing thing, especially when we speak about Saros cycles, and I could go on and on. Anyway, so the moon is about 163, 164 degrees from the sun this way. Well, moon sun cycle, okay, so it's more like 180, which brings me to 17 Cancer, right, opposite point to the sun, plus that much. Okay, so from 17 Cancer, I need 13 degrees to get to Leo and another 4-ish to get to this moon. So I could say 180 plus 17 plus 4 is 197, plus 4 is 204 1 degrees. Let me just make sure I did that right. 180 from the sun gets 17 Cancer. Plus 13 is 193. I did that wrong. 193 gets me to Leo. And then another 4 is 197 degrees away. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, since I'm there, let's just go all the way. When was the new moon before Bowie's birth? Well, the moon is now 197 degrees from the sun. Forgetting that again, 180 plus 13 plus 4, yeah, 197 degrees from the sun. Okay. Well, if I divide that by this 12, you know, let's as long as the calculator is out, let's say 12.19. We see 16.16. What is that 12.19? That's the difference between, on average, the daily movement of the moon, about 13 degrees, and that of the sun, about 1 degrees. So this tells me that if I divide that phase angle of moon sun by their average rate of daily separation, okay, it's like 12.19. I just want to write, because that's good language. Spell and get back to this slide. Sorry. Okay. Constantly working. So that 197 divided by that average distance or degrees of daily separation between the moon and the sun, 12 degrees and 12 minutes, or 12.19 degrees, shows me, because they're about 197 degrees away, that's going to be 16.16 days. And let's just call that 16 days, okay? Or 16.2, which is 16 and a fifth. It's going to be about 16 days before this, okay? So let's do, let me see. Look at the moon-sun conjunction before Bowie's birth. Our hypothesis is that it's going to be 16 days before this. And that would be January 8th minus 6 days. It's January 2nd. Minus 10 days is December 31st minus 8, which is December 23rd, right? So I expect to see a new moon on December 23rd-ish. Did I do that math right? I can also look at the sun. What's 16 degrees shy of there? 16 days shy of there. We'll put the sun around the 1 degrees Capricorn. So that feels more like December 22nd. All right, so let's do this thing. Moon conjoined sun before Bowie's birth. Thanks to Astro Gold for making that so easily. Okay, we were right twice. 1 degree Capricorn, December 23rd. Amazing. Let's do a bunch of examples, and I won't cut off and get back to slides during the course of the thing. Let's actually do the quicker example here in Bowie's nativity, which is that because he is born in the waning half of the cycle, right, moon is now applying to the sun, that the prenatal syzygy for this wonder called David Bowie was the full moon. Okay, well, how far out from the full moon alignment is this, which of course is 180 degrees? Well, that's 17 Cancer. I had 13 to get to Leo and another 4 to get here. So it's about 17 degrees. Okay. Well, how long does it take for the Earth Sun thing to do 17? They do 12 in a day. Okay. 12 and a half of 12 is 18. Okay. So it's going to be like a day and a half. So in a day and a half, the sun travels about 1.5 degrees, right? So this would be 16, 15 Capricorn minus half a degree, even like 15 and a half, 1545 Capricorn. So the moon will be in like 1545 Cancer. And what's a day and a half before this time? January 7th at 9 a.m. is a day before. A half a day before that is January 6th at 9 p.m. Right? This is a rough estimate, but we'll see it's pretty close. So moon opposite sun before Bowie's birth. There we go. 16 Cancer, January 6th, 9 p.m. Right? I'm off by 2 hours, and you can see where I'm doing pretty general like math estimates there, and it's enough. Let's do another chart. Julian Assange, that's interesting. Okay, born in the waxing or the waning half of the lunation. No, this has nothing to do with houses. It's simply about, has moon reached opposition to sun yet? And the answer is no. And we see this because we say moon trine sun, not sun trine moon. Moon trine sun helps us see that moon is applying to this trine because moon moves faster. Moon is in lower degrees, so that trine is about to happen. We said sun trine moon or thought the sun moved faster, then we would see that sun is separating from this, right? So speak the name of the faster moving planet first. Assange is definitely born in the waxing half of the cycle, right? How far into it? So it's about 120 degrees, right? That's a trine. If I want to get more specific, I would do 120 minus 3, right? Because 120 from 10 and a half Cancer is going to be 10 and a half Scorpio minus 3 degrees. So that's 120 minus 3 is 117. But here, for this, I'm just going to say 120, and I'm going to say the daily separation of moon from sun in the waxing half of the cycle. Or always, if I just consider the moon-sun phase angle to be measured from the sun to the moon. The daily separation is 12 degrees, about more like 12 degrees in 12 minutes. Let's use 12 degrees. Let's call this 120 degrees, which is 10 times 12, right? So therefore, we would expect this to be a new moon 10 days before Julian Assange's birth. Oh, that's interesting because the sun moving about a degree per day is going to put us at the first degree of Cancer, right? So there was a cardinal point, new moon before Assange's birth. Now, when I see that, since it's right at the cusp of a couple signs, I'd probably want to get more exact. To do so, I need to know how fast the moon is moving. And it's nice, we can see it here. If I check that out, the moon is actually moving 12 degrees in 12 minutes, which is less than average for the moon. The way that I can see that on a chart is to put true black moon Lilith in. And that's kind of a long tale for another time, but just to say it this way, the moon's orbit of the Earth, if you use that model, it's not a circle with one center. It is an ellipse with 2 foci. One of those is a dark point in space called, that astrologers have come to call true black moon Lilith. When we look through that point, we are looking at the point of moon's orbit that is furthest from Earth. Let's have an image here, right? So when we look through true black moon Lilith, we are facing the lunar apogee, which is where in moon's orbit, the moon is furthest from Earth and therefore dimmest, slowest, smallest. Whereas the lunar perigee is always zodiacally opposite true black moon Lilith in the chart. And that's where moon is closest, biggest, fastest, okay? So Assange has slow moon, and that will kind of weigh into my calculations, whatever. But what we saw, that moon is about 120 degrees ahead of the sun in the zodiacal order, that the moon and sun separate by about 12 degrees per day. 120 degrees divided by 12 degrees, 10 days. Sun moves about a degree per day. So we will expect a new moon in the first degree of Cancer some 10 days before this, right? Minus 3 days gets me to June 30th, and then minus another 7 days to June 23rd. Or is it June 24th? Okay, so anyway, moon conjoined sun, previous, June 22nd. I did a weird thing with the math there, but there we go. First degree Cancer, right? I actually want to just catch up live with what I did there, because it's something about subtracting 10 days from July 3rd. I'm gonna have to do this. July 3rd, July 2nd, July 1st, June 30th, minus 6. Huh. It's more than 10 days that pass by. Oh, let's do it this way. Let's go, there's from that new moon. Let's go 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, 8 days, 9 days, 10 days. Now, I just did some bad math. It's hard to subtract for me. It's hard to subtract 10 days from July 3rd. Oh, and then also we see a different date here, because this is Richmond, California, when Julian Assange was born in Australia. Okay, so that was part of the issue too. That would have come into the Bowie thing also. Is the software is choosing my location, my like program location, rather than the birth location for these transit chart wheels. I wonder if I can change that somewhere. Let's do another example. You know, although I'm also wondering if for Assange, if this was an eclipse, and to do that, we need to see the nodes. And the answer is no. The new moon must meet near enough to the nodes for it to be an eclipse. So what about the new moon following Assange's birth? Is that an eclipse? Yeah. If the moon and sun are within about 18, there's that number again, degrees of the node, this is a very partial eclipse. But the syzygy that followed that, okay, bam, that was a very total lunar eclipse. And the moon is near opposite Lilith, so that's a big like super moon lunar eclipse that happened on August 6th, which is what, 31 days plus 3, 34 days after Julian Assange's birth. So that would have caught up for him about 34 years in secondary progressions. Let's have a look at Julian Assange at 34 years old. Let's see if anything pops up there. So he was born in the year 71, so 34 at 75, 2005. Let me just look at 2005 in Wiki. Charges under the Espionage Act. Anyway, I would love to research that more sometime. We only see it in one place. A lot of, oh, he founded WikiLeaks in 2006. So we can imagine that when that postnatal lunar eclipse caught up to Julian Assange by a secondary progression, that this contributed eclipse shadow stuff to WikiLeaks, bringing light from the shadow, which is clearly an eclipse theme. I kind of can't do that without looking at more astrology. It's conjoined a retrograde Mars, more. Oh, we also have this significant time change. Okay, so I want to see when in Julian Assange's life. Let's just start with secondary progressions, when that progressed eclipse was. It was some months before that. There we go. Sometime in 2006, which is when Assange started WikiLeaks. So in the midst of this SoliLunar time thing, we have a quick confirmation of the strange astrological technique called secondary progressions. Fantastic. Let's do another SoliLunar time chart example. Oh, where do we want to go? How about who wants to speak here? How about Marilyn Monroe? Okay, so I mean, let's just let the chart be here. Can't we see just the moon and the sun while everyone is still around? I mean, it's hard not to see all these amazing shapes and other things, so maybe I should put them away. But what is the moon-sun phase angle? Okay, so same sign, some element of signs, Gemini sun reflected by an Aquarius moon, Aquarius reflecting Gemini, the revolution of truth. And so that's a trine, 120 degrees, right? But remember, moon, sun. So go this way, 240 degrees would bring me to 10 and a half Aquarius, okay? So this is, 240 plus 18, about 258. But let's first look at Marilyn's prenatal syzygy, okay? So the prenatal syzygy, because she's born in the waning half of the lunation, would be the full moon, right? How far is moon from the solar opposition of 10 and a half Sagittarius? We take a sextile from 10 and a half Sagittarius to get to 10 and a half Aquarius, so that's 60 degrees. Plus 8, okay? So like 68 degrees, all right? Well, what's 68 degrees divided by 12? 72 degrees divided by 12 is 6. So I'm just gonna do really rough math and say, and why am I dividing by 12? That's the average degrees of the daily separation between moon and sun. So I'm gonna say there was a full moon about 6 days before Marilyn Monroe's birth, which is a confirmation for me because that's the gig with the time between a full moon and a trine moon. And so it's gonna be more like 5.5 days. Here we're gonna get, it was in the same time zone, which would be helpful because we saw that when I do this transit, it's gonna do it for where I'm sitting in Richmond, California, some ways north of LA. So 5.5 days. And sun moves about a degree per day. So that's going to put the sun back at about 5 degrees Gemini. So I'm expecting that there was a full moon on about May 26th, I think that goes, at 5 degrees Sagittarius, and that's Marilyn Monroe's prenatal syzygy. Moon opposite sun. There we go. 5 Sag. Okay. May 27th. I'm having a hard day with subtracting days. And it's 3 a.m., so it's almost the 26th. Anyway, there you go, right? Okay, well, where was the new moon before Marilyn's birth? Is this an eclipse, by the way? No, it's not. Too far from the notes. The new moon would be about 14 and a half, 15 days before this, okay? So that one's easier to do. I can subtract 15 from 27 and or 14 and a half from 27 even. Let me do 15 and I'll just make the AM PM. That's 12, right? So May 12th. And it's going to be about 14 and a half degrees shy of here, right? So 15 degrees shy of here would be 20 and a half Taurus. So about 21 and a half degrees Taurus on May 12th around 4 p.m. is when I think we will find Moon conjoined Sun. 20 and a half Taurus, May 11th in the p.m. Yeah, I'm not like including, or I think I am including the date that I'm starting from, and I'm not supposed to when I do subtract dates. I think that's one thing I'm learning right here. Anyway, there you go. That simple. Now, is this an eclipse? Heck no. Too far from the node. But, I mean, let's play that secondary progression thing again. Let's get to the next new moon in Gemini. Still too far from the nodes. What about the next one? Actually, it's going to be the next lunar. The next full moon was a lunar eclipse. Has to be within about 12 degrees of the nodes. That's cutting it close. That's very partial. There's a very total solar eclipse coming after Marilyn's birth. Right at the node. Although also it's a small moon. Moon by Lilith. So possibly that's actually an annular solar eclipse. June 1st to July 9th, right? That's about 38 days, 39 days. Let's play this game. First of all, let's see if that 1926 eclipse was annular, as I suspect it may have been, or total. My favorite eclipse place to play is moonblink.info /eclipse/search. And I'll just look at all of the eclipses in 1926. And I find that this postnatal solar eclipse of July 9th, 1926 was indeed an annular solar eclipse. So very strong alignment of the moon and the sun to the nodes, their crossing points, but it's a small moon close to Lilith. So the moon is too small to occult the entire sun disk. So where was it seen on Earth, we might ask? It was visible in California, not in its totality. You'd have to be on a boat north of Hawaii, basically, to be on that path. But it was an annular solar eclipse that was certainly visible in Los Angeles and most of the United States, where maybe Marilyn Monroe was living at that time. Also, how many days was it after her birth? And maybe I'm bad at subtracting dates because I usually do this. So, or let me do, we can do the time between two dates on timeanddate.com. This is wonderful. So I can go from July 9th to June 1st. And you know, it's going to be the same every year, but let's, for the sake of science, do 1926. And we get 38 days, which is another amazing sun moon thing because 19 years for the lunations to agree. So at our 38th solar return, we have a synodic return. Let me show that to you. So let's do a solar return chart for Marilyn Monroe. Oops. Where's there? Solar return. 38 years after that, which is 40 minus 2, which is 66, which is 64. So 1964. Well, So here's that 38 solar return, and it's a lunar return on the same day as the solar return. That happens every 19 years. An interesting year for Marilyn Monroe. John F. Kennedy had been assassinated the year before, November 22nd, 1963. There's a lot coming out about them at this time, I can imagine. But a thing that I'm very interested in seeing is the secondary progressions at that time, because that will be right around the time that this annular solar eclipse or postnatal annular solar eclipse came knocking. So again, we're seeing some pretty amazing well, wheels within wheels stuff. I was going to say amazing secondary progression stuff. I mean, would this eclipse in the balsamic phase of what it had to do before have anything to do with, John F. Kennedy's assassination? Well, that was now almost a full year before this time. But let's check out Marilyn Monroe in 1964. And I'll just cheat and do this in Wikipedia. Something in the Guardian. Whoa, September 11th, interesting. Shot Maryland's. Fox soon regretted its decision to reopen negotiations with Monroe later in June, a settlement about a new contract, including recommencing Something's Got to Give, and a starring role in the black comedy What a Way to Go. Well, black comedy eclipse. Am I reaching here? I find that to be interesting. What a way to go. 1964 American comedy. But is she not in it, huh? She was like cast for it but didn't make it there or something. Including recommencing Something's Got to Give and a starring role. So there's a deal for that. Anyway, let's not get too lost there. When did Marilyn Monroe die? Oh, I guess we were just there. Wait, did Marilyn Monroe die before Kennedy did? Am I not learning how to read this? Hold on a second. Oh, in 62. Know your history, Gemini. Yeah, I didn't know that. Okay, so before this eclipse came calling in 1964, Marilyn Monroe had died. Came calling by secondary progression. Why are we in secondary progression space? Anyway, let's do one more example of SoliLunar time. How about, I have a lot of Nelson Mandela work going on here. How about Venus Williams? Okay, so was Venus Williams born in the waxing or the waning half of the lunation? Waxing, right? The moon is almost exactly sextile sun, and the opening sextile moon waxing away, now 60 degrees from the sun. Now the sextile happens about 3 days after, about 5 days after new moon. But we could see that using this math, right? Because the sextile is 60 degrees, and we're going to divide that by the about 12 days, right? 12 degrees. So 60 degrees divided by 12 degrees per day, which is the average separation between the moon and the sun daily. 12 degrees, 12 minutes, okay? I mean, I could get more specific, but if I want to get more specific, I also better call that more like 61 degrees divided by 12.19. Either way, 5 days. So we're going to expect to see on June 12th a new moon at 5 degrees less than this, 2122 Gemini. There you go. June 12th, 22 Gemini. See how, I mean, it's not hard. Let's just do, since I keep moving us into secondary progress space, I'm just going to click twice, and it's Louis Pasteur. Okay, fine. So Pasteur was born just before the full moon. Okay. Moon moving about 13 degrees per day. So the day after this, exactly one day after this, moon is going to be at about this plus 13. 18 plus 13 is 31. So it's going to be about 1 degree Cancer. But moon's moving super fast because moon is opposite Lilith. We're going to find that the rate of the moon at the time of Pasteur's birth is much faster than 13 degrees per day. And you got 15 degrees per day, right? So always remember we're playing with averages. Anyway, we do have this average we've been playing with, which is the idea that moon and sun distance from one another by, or at least I could say the moon-sun phase angle measured along in the zodiacal order from the sun to the moon is going to increase by about 12 degrees per day. So what is it here? Well, for this one, it's going to be easiest for me to just go from the opposition and subtract to get to 18. So the opposition is 5 Cancer, minus 5 degrees is 30 Gemini, right? So 180 minus 5 is 175, minus another 12 degrees to get there, 173, 163, right? If I divide 163 by 12, I should get to the how many days it was before Pasteur's birth for the prenatal syzygy, the prenatal new moon. 163 divided by 12. I'm going to go to the calculator for that one. And as long as I'm in the calculator, let's do the 12.19 or 12.2. That's 12 degrees and 12 minutes. So 13.3 days, okay? So 13 days before this time is what, December 14th? Or is it the 15th? I keep doing that wrong. Here I think I can choose natal. Okay. Moon conjoined sun, previous. That's just too hard. Anyway, I was trying to do it for France. Moon conjoined sun. April 22nd, 2020. Wait, that's not happening. Sorry. Let's go here. Don't know how that happened. So we were at 13 1/3 degrees or days before Pasteur's birth. What just happened? This is no longer him. Sorry. We're going to expect to find a new moon. Okay, so the sun 13 1/2 degrees before 5 Capricorn is going to be 22 Sag. That's where I expect to see the new moon before Pasteur's birth. And it's going to be around December 14th or 14th. So, okay, moon conjoined sun before here. There we go, right? December 13th, but that's California time. This is December 14th in France. Maybe late night on the 13th. And there you go. Let's do another one. I'm just going to randomly pick. No, I'm not. Let's do Dali. Wonderful. All right, so Dali was born in the waning half of the cycle, right? Moon is applying to sun. And let's go back to the prenatal syzygy, which is the full moon before this time. Okay, so I will first measure from the opposition to the sun, 20 Scorpio. How many degrees between 20 Scorpio and, I'm just going to call this 3 Aries. Okay, so 20 Scorpio plus 120 gets me to 20 Pisces, right? Use your aspects. So 120 Pisces plus 13 gets me there. So basically this is a moon is 123 degrees zodiacally ahead of the sun's opposition. So 123 divided by 12 degrees per day of the moon sun separation. Let's just say that's 120 divided by 12. So that's 10 days. So 10 days before May 11th is May 1st. And 20 minus 10, we're going to expect to see a full moon at 10 degrees Scorpio on May 1st, 1904. Oops, that's the full moon. There we go. 10 Scorpio, April 29th in California would be April 30th in Madrid. I think I need to just continue to subtract one more day. But there you go. I mean, we see it's actually a little bit further behind what I thought at 10, and that's because we're playing with averages. So where's the new moon before this time? It's about 15 degrees shy of there, about 15 days shy of here. So April 14th, California time, and 15 degrees short of this place would be like 29 minus 5, like 24 degrees Aries. April 15th, 25 and a half Aries, right? See, we do this a lot and you will find it's pretty easy. Caitlyn Jenner, all right? Born in the waxing half of the cycle and the square, the opening square, which Rudra calls conflict and action. So 90 degrees, that happens about a week after new moon, right? So we would also see that in like 90. This is actually not quite 90, but if we do 90 divided by 12.19, there's that. It's actually more than a week. This should be very close to 29, so 7.38. The time of a new moon to new moon illumination divided by 4, splitting it into 4, 7.38, right? I mean, here we could get, I guess, more precise. It's not quite 90 degrees. It's more like 88 degrees. So 88 divided by 12.19, 7.2 days. Okay, so 7 days before 5 Scorpio is 28 Libra. 7 days before October 28th. Isn't it October 21st? Or is it October 22nd? This is really confusing me. There we go, 28 Libra, October 21st. That feels like 7. Okay. One more. SoliLunar time, learning to see it in a chart. Galileo Galilei. Very lunar cat, that. This is not Galileo's chart. Oh, it's a 0 Aries wheel for Galileo. Why? Waxing half of the cycle, about a sextile, right? 60 degrees divided by 12, 5 days, 5 degrees shy of this place. We're going to see a new moon 5 days before this, around February 11th, at about 2 degrees Pisces. There you go, 3 Pisces, February 12th. And that has to do with the speed of the moon, because this, my friends, is a serious supermoon, new moon. Look at how fast the moon is moving at that time. And well, and even still at the time of Galileo's birth, fast moon, more than 13 degrees per day. I think one more. Alice Bailey, interesting. Okay, so Alice Bailey, born during the waxing half of the cycle, just after the square. I guess we don't know her birth time. So it is a square of 90 degrees, which brings me to 2538 Virgo, plus another 8 degrees, 7 degrees. So 97 degrees divided by 12 is 8. So 8 days before this on June 8th, 8 degrees before that on 17 Gemini. 17 Gemini, June 8th. This is California time, so maybe the 8th in England, and there we go, 17 Gemini. It's fun. One more, I want to talk about one other thing. Let's do Ali. Although, you know what, he's so close to the new moon. I want to do somebody born in the latter half of the cycle. Whoa, Brando was born during new moon. Catherine the Great. Born during full moon, almost. All right, classic example, I guess. Look at that. Full moon conjoined Uranus, super full moon. Why do I know? Moon opposite Lilith at the bendings. Holy moly. Which is a Goonies quote. Anyway, so let's say, well, she's born at the full moon, but not quite. So still her prenatal syzygy would be the new moon that preceded this. The lunation is about 29 and a half days. It's about 14 3/4 days between new moon and full moon. This is a moon that's moving really fast, which means that the cycle began, however, slow when moon was conjoined true black moon Lilith at the lunar apogee over here. So we could say probably 15 is a better number. So that's going to bring me back to 7 degrees Taurus, 15 days before this. I'm not even going to try to do that math anymore. So 7 degrees Taurus. All right, I am. May 2nd minus 15 days, I think is April 30th minus 13 days. I think it's April 17th. 7 degrees Taurus. And April 27th? Wait, what? Oh no, don't do it to me. Isn't April 27th? Oh, something's happening here between old calendar and new calendar stuff. Right, like April 27th to May 2nd is like 5 days, not 15 days. But in the Julian to Gregorian shift, they just threw 10 days in. Something's happening there. Weird. Okay, I can't end like that. Do one more example. I'm going to choose somebody who was born in more modern times. How about Cesar Chavez? Okay, so here's a fun example too, right? Because he's born the day before the new moon. Right, I mean, I just go one day after this time because the moon moves about 13 degrees per day. That's going to put it at like 15 or 5 degrees Aries the next day, right? So it's like a full 28 days before this, the new moon before his birth was. But let's look at the prenatal syzygy, okay, which is the full moon for somebody who's born in the waning half of the cycle. And so let's measure the distance to the moon from the point that's opposite the sun, which is 10 degrees Libra. Let's see, 10 degrees Libra plus 150, a quincunx gets me to 10 Pisces. So 150 plus 12 is 162. 162 degrees divided by the 12.19 is 13.3 days. I'm going to call that 13 and 13 degrees. So I'm expecting a full moon at about 27 degrees of Virgo, 13 days before this time, March 18th, 27 Virgo. 27 Virgo on March 18th. We can end there. Would I know, looking at Chavez's nativity, that going back about 13 days to the prenatal syzygy, that 27th Virgo full moon on March 18th, 1927, would I know that Mercury would be retrograde at that time? Would I know that though, Uranus is just ingressed Aries? That's interesting to see at the time of Chavez's nativity. Can I assume that Uranus therefore would be in Pisces and therefore very close to this new moon before his birth? Yeah, right? Sorry, this is the full moon before his birth, aligned with Uranus. I mean, should we imagine that we would see some Uranian happenings with Cesar Chavez? Yeah. Can we have some idea of what Venus would have done in 2 weeks' time? Well, Venus moves about 1.25 degrees when she's moving fast. Is she moving fast at this time? So we need to know something about what Venus does when she's 30 degrees from the sun. Venus will be maybe not even in the sign of Taurus. Probably not if we rewind back to that new moon, right? So learning to see time based upon how fast planets move. All right, so 15 days before this, would Saturn be retrograde? Did you know that the outer planets tend to station retrograde when Sun is on the opening trine of their cycle? The Sun-Saturn cycle, notice I speak the name of the faster moving planet first. 15 days before this, the Sun's not yet trine Saturn. It's really close. It's going to be slow Saturn regardless, but maybe Saturn's station was not retrograde. Yes. Okay. Let's look at Saturn in that moment, though. 2 arc minutes per day. That means that is the time of Saturn's station. All right. I think we've had enough. Learning how to see time, even in a static chart. What is the time that led into that moment? What is the time that led out of that moment? Right? Your chart is the frame of a film. Let's see the whole scene. Thanks for tuning in, friends. Would love to hear any comments of those that are watching live. Maybe I will put this one on YouTube. We went to some fun places. So if you're watching in the future, please give a like to the video. Say hello. Say a thing or two. What did you learn? What can you teach me? Please. Also, if you feel like giving something back for what you may have received here, you will find a donate button at GeminiBrett.com, where you will also find links to book a session with me. Let's look at your prenatal syzygies and secondary progressions and eclipse cycles and all this stuff. It's fun. Love and planets to you, friends. Back to work with me.